Mike Bond, joined today by Bellator President Scott Coker, who has come to the conclusion of a great year for the company. Obviously, a very challenging year, Scott, but we are at the end of it. If I ask you to look back, I mean, obviously, I'm sure the first thing that comes to your mind is returning from the pandemic, all the things you had to do. But besides that, what stands out as the highlight of the year for Bellator in your mind, whether it's a fight, a fighter, a moment, something like that?
Boy, I tell you, there were so many great moments in the company and so many victories, honestly, this year. In a very tough year, it's been a very challenging year. And, when I look back at it, it's going to be something I'll never forget because this is something where, my 30, or even just as an adult, all the years I've lived, as a human being, I've never experienced anything like this, just like everybody else. And to go through it, it was a grind. It was really a tough, grind the whole year and producing these fights to go into a bubble. Our staff sometimes, they're living at the Mohegan Sun for up to, I want to say, 2 months, not able to live to maintain the bubble for all the other fights coming through the following week. So, it was tough. But I think Paris was definitely a big win for us. That's something we've been working on for the 2 years, maybe up to 3 years now, and to be the very first MMA show in Paris and in France. And it'll be in the history books. And so to me, that's something that will put a feather in our cap, and it's an iconic victory. But we had so many great fights since we started promoting again in July. And I think about the Bader Nemkov fight was an amazing talent. Nemkov is an amazing talent. He had a great. I mean, Bader's no joke, and he took it to Bader for that fight. I was really surprised. A fight, anything can happen in a fight, but that was his night. So that was another a moment that sticks out in my mind. And the fight that we just had with Juliana Velasquez and Alina Macfarlane, that was another one that boy, talk about a girl that I think is going to be dominant for a long time. Is Velasquez? I think that she's gonna be around for a while. But so many great fights, so many great moments in a year that's just been filled with frustration on many levels, through the whole year with the pandemic. And, hopefully the vaccine will kick in and it'll be accessible and we can get back to promoting fights and getting back to doing arenas and selling tickets and getting back to, having a venue full of people. That's really something I look forward to, maybe in the middle or towards the end of 21.
Very interesting. And obviously, if we want to circle back to the COVID side of it, we obviously had our reporter Nolan King in the Fightsphere for every fight you guys did there throughout that run. He was, going through all the procedures and stuff like that. How do you feel upon reflection? There's obviously a couple of guys that had to be taken off due to positive COVID tests before they arrived, those kind of things. But just looking back, how do you feel you guys executed the procedures and, the safety protocols and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think we did a great job. And again, this is from the highest levels of the company, and I'm talking about Viacom, not just Bellator. And we, circled back with them. We created a manual that's probably, SpaceX reentry program, how to get back down to Earth, with all the coordinates. But the protocols and the challenges to get this Fightsphere not just up and running, but to continue with it week after week after week. And it was really tough. And like I said, Icon was involved. They had a ton of doctors involved. And it was something that was a manual that was about 3 inches thick that we had to, abide by. And, you basically are in this area and you're basically going to quarantine. Once you get there, you're going to quarantine, you come down, you take a test, you go back to quarantine. And really, it's not like a normal fight week where, like for myself, even, it's like I'm doing the same thing. I'm going there, I'm going to my room. I'm in my room probably 80% of the time. Come down for the weigh-ins, go back to my room. Come back. You're basically isolated within the bubble, and you're staying away from everybody. And I mean the mass population. You can't go eat at restaurants. So think about that. You can't even go eat. So normally I would go to a fight and I would talk to fighters, talk to managers, talk to camps, sit down, have conversations, talk about the future. We couldn't do any of that. It was really basically you're there for the fight. These are the rules. This is the procedures. This is what you have to stick by. And in order to keep the fight, bubble tight, which I think we did a great job. I think I said last week that we did, I want to say 4,800 tests. But honestly, they let me know that didn't include the pre-fight test, and it didn't include all the Euro tests. And so if you add all those together, it's close to, I want to say, 8,000, 9,000 tests. And our, the positivity rate was very low. It was, I want to say, 0.05%. So not even 1%. And I think that's because of the way that we ran that bubble. So when we go back, starting in probably February, we start throwing fights again. It'll be the same thing. We'll be back in a bubble situation and abiding by the rules and the regulations. And until this thing starts going away, we're going to be doing the same operation.
Okay, so you kind of touched a little bit on what I was going to ask next. So your expectation going into 2021 is it's going to be the similar setup until the vaccine becomes more widely available.
Yeah, absolutely. Because look, in California, you can't even have a football team practice, and you can't even have football team play. The Niners had to go to the Arizona, stadium. So, especially for us, I mean, we're going to be on lockdown for a while here. So, anytime that we can go and do a fight, I think in the near future, it's still going to be under a bubble situation. So, that's going to continue, and I think that's going to continue until the vaccine gets widely spread and everybody gets the chance to take it, and this thing starts going away, and then I think we can regroup and get back into some type of normalcy.
And before we get into talking about some specific fighters, what is kind of your vision for 2021? I know it's probably hard to lay out the entire year, maybe as you normally would, just because there is that level of uncertainty. But ideally, how many events are you looking to run? How often are you looking to run shows? And when do you think we could see the first show?
Yeah, this is something that we're still mapping out right now. As things are shutting down, we're still meeting with our fight team and the networks and figuring out where, who's going to fight, when we'll start, that sort of thing. And so as far as the amount of content, we'll probably still produce our 22 to 26 events. That's kind of what we're thinking in the ballpark. And that'll include hopefully some fights in Europe as things open up over there. But that's kind of the thought process. And as far as starting, we're probably thinking, sometime in February. We haven't locked the date down yet, but I think that's kind of what we'll be looking at is in February. We'll probably launch with our first fight of 21.
Perfect. And as you go into 21, obviously, there a lot of the talk around Bellator is your change in philosophy about your roster and how you're approaching guys you're looking at, who you're bringing in, who you're keeping around, all that kind of stuff. What prompted this really, like specifically? Because, you've obviously, I feel like in just the past few months, you've been a lot more vocal about that and made kind of your stance a lot more public and a lot more clear. Was there something in particular that prompted that feeling?
Not really. I mean, really, to be honest, it was, we've been waiting for, let's say, our first group of fighters in Bellator to finally develop and get to the point where they can be some of our main events. And AJ McKee is a great example. I said this before. He's a kid that when I got to Bellator, he was one of my first signings, and now he's fighting a main event fight for us, right? The finals of the tournament, and he has fought other main events for us. I believe before the pandemic hit, I think he was a main event once or twice, but if not a co-main event. And so to me, we have the next group of fighters ready to step up. Macfarlane was somebody that came along the way to basically build from somebody that was let's say early on in her career, and we've built them to the point now where they're ready to take on the big fighters and have big fights. And she was our world champion, just lost it to Velasquez. But my point is, we have a young group of talent that now can take some of the slots in our TV programs to become our main events, and they've matured that way. And it's no different than like say back 10 years ago when we had T Wood or Luke Rockhold. Eventually, those guys became main events. Daniel Cormier eventually became a main event, but it takes years to develop these guys. I think that's something that people don't really realize. It's like this is not something that you can bring a fighter in that has no fights, has talent but no fights, get them to become a main event in an MMA fight. I mean, it takes years. It's a 4 or 5 year process, and so now we can we're gonna be picky about who we bring in as free agent. listen, the Corey Andersons of the world, the Rumble Johnsons of the world, that just made a lot of sense because I was already bragging about, hey, we have the best 205-pound weight class in the planet, right? Which I feel that we do. And then we just added 3 killers or 2 killers. Now we could definitely put the stamp on that, right? So to me, that just made sense because now we have a lot of options for a lot of great fights in that weight class. And Nemkov is the champ, but he's going to have his hands full. We're going to be able to put him through a gauntlet of fights that's going to really challenge him. So to me, we'll be picky about the free agents that we bring in. And I always said we got to build this roster from the bottom up, right? Which we have been doing, and that's like the new kids and AJs, all those guys. And then we have to, buy from the top down. So before we were buying a wide variety of, the free agents out there. Now we're kind of narrowing it down to, what we're looking for. So that's really the difference in philosophy is that now we have more choices, right? And it's because we've done a really good job building from the ground up, and now we'll have the ability to, pick and choose the free agents.
Got it. So in light of that, what exactly happened with Yoel Romero? Because last time we spoke to you at Mohegan, you said, maybe this isn't going to be for us. And then a week later, it was announced, he was on the roster. So can you just walk me through the process and how you ultimately decided to bring him in?
Yeah, at first, the thought was, okay, Yoel started with us as Strikeforce back in, I want to say 2008, right? So
yep.
I was going, you know what? Part of me wanted to do it, and the part of me didn't want to do it. But after we signed Rumble, then we had the chance for Yoel, and we passed on it, But then I tell you honestly, it was like the amount of support that he got coming through our doors, and through the social channels, really was impressive, and everybody wanted to see the Yoel Romero versus Rumble Johnson fight, right? So I had a lot with my team, and I think one thing that in this situation people don't really realize is like even if we said we were going to pass, but we talk to these agents all the time, every day, and Yoel's name kept coming up. So finally, I just said, you know what? Let's do it. Let's just add him to the mix. He still is an amazing talent. He still is somebody that is very dangerous, and he definitely can still fight. So I said, let's put him in the mix and let's just go for it. And I'm glad we did because, to me, I had a little chat with him, and it was great. It was he seems like such a nice guy and very mature, and I'm looking forward to putting him, in our 205-pound mix sometime next year.
So you mentioned that Rumble fight. When Yoel did an interview with ESPN right after he signed, he said he thinks there's a 90% chance his first fight is against Rumble. When Rumble spoke to our Nolan King, he didn't seem so certain of that. What is the likelihood both those guys make their debut against each other?
That's something that we'll figure out. We haven't, decided yet. This is obviously something that we're going to work our way through, but, it's something that we'll figure this out probably the next month or so. But we just threw out a lot of hypotheticals. But let's face it, that's the fight the fans want to see, right? And sometimes, my philosophy has always been, look, if the fight is there and you can make the fight, you always make the fight, because there's no guarantees that fight will be there in 6 months or a year, right? And it just seems like that fight has a lot of heat on it. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but we'll definitely have a serious conversation about it at some point.
What are the chances it could come in play into a tournament? We actually have our weekly talk show on our MMA Junkie called Spinning Back Click, and one of our topics this week was what's going to be the next Bellator tournament in 2021. Some of us argued 205, and you look at these names, for an 8-man, you got Nemkov, you got Corey Anderson, Ryan Bader, Phil Davis, Machida, Musasi, Anthony Johnson, and Yoel Romero. Wow. That sounds like a hell of an 8-man tournament, Scott.
Yeah, it would be quite a tournament, and that's something that is under consideration. Originally we were thinking about the 135, with the addition of Magomedov, and we still have Archuleta out there. We were going to invite Horiguchi to fight, or Asakura, whoever wins the Grand Prix in Japan, to come enter this tournament. We talked about the women's division. We still have some great talent there. And now we're talking about the 205. It's definitely in the conversation, but we just haven't decided. But that's something we'll figure out in the next, like I said, the next 20 days. We'll be locked and loaded and ready to go.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out for that. And as we talk about free agents, literally as we're talking now, Anthony Pettis, former UFC WEC lightweight champion, posted that he is officially parting ways with the UFC. He is a free agent. He's been signed his release letter or whatever he needs to be to completely cut ties. What's your level of interest in Anthony Pettis? Obviously, Sergio is part of the roster, his brother.
Yeah, we love having Sergio, and I didn't know he was a free agent. I'm sure my guys are already talking to their camps, and we'll have a conversation. And level is sometimes based on what is the business deal, because there has to be a certain value there based on the price, and really that's what it comes down to is is the value worth what we think that of the fights that we can put together for him. So. And really, it's like how much stuff does he have in the gas tank? Let's say, But we'll definitely have that conversation. We usually have that conversation with every free agent, whether we sign them or not. And we'll probably do the same thing with Pettis if we haven't already done it.
I'll tell you, Scott, Anthony Pettis versus MVP would be some wild stuff. I think that would be a hell of a fight.
That'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. I mean, that would be amazing. But we'll see. It's there's only, like I said, there's only so many slots on TV for us. We'll be having 22 to 26 fights, and will all be mapped out sometime in the next, like I say, 3 weeks, and we'll figure it out. But we'll have a conversation and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and speaking of MVP, do you think we see him back early 2021, or what's kind of the status with him on your mind?
Yeah, you know what? Early 21, I'm not sure, but by March, April for sure, I think we definitely will have him back. And that I think the performance that he had in Paris I think he was right. I think that the mat was a little bit slippery, and I've had a couple of people come up to me and say it, and what it was the local team that were spraying the disinfectant. I think they kind of went a little bit overboard and having too much fun with the music and getting into it, because I kind of watched them, and Czech Congo said the same thing to me after. I said, how was it out there? He said, it was slippery. And so I'm sure MVP had a lot of stuff in his arsenal that he wanted to do that he just couldn't do because of the canvas. But originally I thought it might be some ring rust, but I don't think so after talking to all the fighters that fought that night. So it is something that's that's different, because you're now having to worry about COVID and do everything you can to stay inside the protocol, which is we have to disinfect it between fights and spray it and scrub it down. But it's when I think about MVP, man, you're talking about one of the most talented fighters that I've ever seen, and he's so fast, so explosive, and I think about when I think about him, honestly, I think about him and maybe Neiman Gracie fighting each other at some point. And then maybe the winner can fight Douglas Lima. But that's kind of in my mind what I'm thinking.
Awesome. And how is Douglas doing? Have you had many conversations with him, or have you just kind of given him some time since the Mousasi fight?
Yeah, I'm giving him a little bit of a break. I mean, he really, he wanted to win that fight. And, he did a lot of damage on Gegard, a lot more than I think people realize. And those leg kicks were really working at some point. But, Gegard dug deep, got that takedown. But to me, it's like this: if you want to take the belt from the champ, you got to get busy. You got to stay busy. You got to be active. And I think that if Douglas Lima was a little bit more active, the tide could have turned a little bit. But it is very conservative. He was worried about the takedown, I think, and Gegard can strike too, so he's probably worried about everything, right?
Yeah.
But rightfully so. I mean, Gegard's a beast, and he was fighting. Douglas was in a fight that he had his hands full, and he really respected Gegard. But I think that if you take that side and you just say, tactically, what would you do differently? I would tell Douglas Lima, you just got to get busier. Instead of throwing 1-2s, throw 1, 2, 3, 3, 4s. You got to start throwing combinations at this guy, and you got to get busier, and you got to start doing more damage. Because if you don't, you're going to lose this fight based on points, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Totally. And we talked a little bit about tournaments earlier. You still do have an ongoing tournament, and that's the Featherweight Grand Prix. And you mentioned him a little bit earlier, AJ McKee. I think personally, this guy's the future of your company. I think he's got it all. I've been high on him for a very, very long time. And it seems like, maybe his really early 20s, he's kind of publicly admitted he was a little carefree and, doing his own thing. But it seems like the focus is there, the drive is there and everything. Can you just speak a little bit to AJ and, how much potential you think he has to be, a big breakthrough star for Bellator?
Yeah, I think he is already a big star for Bellator, and he's on his way to becoming a megastar for Bellator and the sport. And really, it's going to be up to us to promote him properly and to keep him out there. But here's a kid that, when he was 17, I saw him fight as an amateur, his last amateur fight, and he submitted the guy, I believe, and he pointed at me and said, Coker, you got to sign me. And I didn't even know where I was going to go at that time. So I was like, yeah, hey. And I knew his father. We all had a good chat and everything. But here's a kid that is extremely intelligent. He's a good-looking kid. He's built well. He's marketable. He could talk. He kind of has that swagger, I mean, he has this swagger about him, and I call it the X factor, right? It's like some people just have it and some people don't. And for whatever reason, and it's not always talent-based, right? It's not only because you're a great fighter, because some of the fighters that are fighting today just have that little something about them that makes you want to watch them, and they might not be the best fighter in the planet. And I'm not saying he's not the best fighter on the planet, but he's definitely going to have his opportunity to raise his level of how people feel about him being the best in the world when he fights the winner of the Sanchez versus Pitbull fight in the finals of this featherweight tournament, which was just a beast. So getting back to AJ, the kid is unbelievable. I just say, hey, if I was sitting down talking to him, just stay hunkered down, just stay in the gym, keep getting better, keep doing your thing, and the sky will be the limit, man. Don't don't get dragged out by other things that that maybe could take away your focus of really what the most important thing right now is improving as an athlete, improving as a fighter. This is something that you can make a great living, a great livelihood doing, and I think he's one of those kids that will make a ton of money in the sport.
And do you think he's kind of the perfect example of, the philosophy yourself, Rich Chow, Mike Hogan have towards matchmaking too? Like, it's going to be 17-0 in Bellator before he fights for a world title. And I know along the way there has been a little frustration for him that maybe he didn't get some of the bigger names that he wanted or whatever the case may be. But if you look at where we are right now, it's kind of hard to argue the way you guys have brought him along.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's a guy that we didn't want to throw him to the deep end too soon, because we really felt like he was something special, right? And he fought these fights. He had to win these fights, though. It wasn't like he was out there just fighting just a bunch of taxi cab drivers. He's fighting real fights, and the guys that potentially could beat him, and I would say equal to his talent level, right? But he just kept getting better and better and better. And when he fought DC with that neck crank, what do they call it? They call it the they have a new name for
it.
A McKee, yeah. It's when he submitted him, I was just like, wow, this is amazing. This kid really took it to the next level. And I'll be really interested to see what the odds are when you have the winner of Pitbull Sanchez coming in to fight, the young kid. It's going to be the OG versus the young lion, right? It's going to be I'm really interested to see what the line's going to be when that fight comes out, and I can't wait, because look, the Pitbull Sanchez fight is going to be an amazing fight. It's going to be another war, I believe, and whoever wins that fight in AJ is going to be another amazing fight. So to me, we have two great fights on the platter for the finish of the featherweight tournament, and $1 million on top of all the money that we're paying these guys already. This is $1 million bonus, and it's a lot of money riding on the line. And I love the fact that AJ wrote this in his mission statement, and it was something that he believed in himself at such a young age to write it down and cement it in his mind and anchor it. And so to me, this is something that would be very, very interesting to me to see how this thing all falls out.
Yeah, and on the flip side, and not to ignore Emmanuel Sanchez here, he's obviously a great fighter himself, but to focus on Pitbull a little bit because I know he'll get mad at me if I don't talk about him and give him a shine too. But I mean, if he does get through this tournament, he'll be your double champion. Like, what do you kind of see is left for him after that? I mean, he's already got so many Bellator records; he's accomplished it all. If he's able to win this Grand Prix, I assume he'll maybe defend the lightweight belt, but like, it seems like if he's able to get through this, he'll have really done everything there is to do in a certain facet.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's our job to keep getting him top level talent to compete and fight. But you're talking about you know if not the greatest featherweight in the history of MMA, definitely one of them. And he's done it all, man. I mean, when he fought Michael Chandler, I thought, okay, this might be a fight that doesn't work out for him. But man, that guy had no fear, and he went right at him, and he knocked Michael out. It wasn't a very long fight. I think the fight only lasted one round or half a round, and that's when I said, okay, this guy. I mean, I am sold now, man. Like you said, he's had so many great fights in Bellator, but a guy that has no fear. He is definitely your alpha male walking in that cage and has that strut and that walk, and he's something that's very special. And I think that he would like to continue at 35. I mean, at 45. And does he want to defend his title at 55? Honestly, I think he wanted to just beat Michael Chandler. I think that's what he wanted to do, and he did it. So I believe that as his brother, gets ready to fight, and if he has some victories, I think he'll give up the 155-pound belt. That's what the manager told me, was that his brother has an opportunity to fight for the title after he gets some fights, get some wins. Then I think that Pitbull will give up the championship belt for his brother to have the opportunity. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is we'll just keep getting fights for him to fight at 45 and 55, and but this tournament was no easy. It was no joke, and he went through a gauntlet of athletes, and he'll be he's going to be ready, man. He's going to be ready. He's really wanting to cement his legacy, and to me, he's already done it all, man. This guy has been, even before I got to Bellator, he was already just taking it to people. So if he fights AJ, and again, he's got to get through Sanchez, which that was a war. Last time he fought Sanchez in Tel Aviv, I believe, I think it was a split decision, and it was super close. So Sanchez is gonna be in his face, and that fight is gonna be a rock'em sock'em, slugfest. But the winner and AJ, to me, that is a fight, man. I'm really looking forward to, and I think the fans are really excited to see that fight.
Absolutely, I agree. And just a couple more people I wanted to ask you about before I let you go, Scott. Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, you did mention her earlier. You mentioned, Juliana Velasquez, her potential. The reaction from Alina losing her title was kind of interesting. She talked about it was a bit of a relief, all that kind of stuff. But if you see her in the past few days for social media, it's I'm getting my belt back. I'm doing this for my family, my friends, training partners, all that kind of stuff. Do you look at an immediate rematch there, given Alima's dominance, the fact she was running the division for so long, or do you maybe look at letting that one be a little bit of a slow burn?
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you. I haven't talked to Ilima, but I'll definitely have a conversation with her. And last time I texted her a couple days ago was, how's your nose, and making sure she's okay, making sure she's healthy, and not too hurt from the fight. But here's the thing to me about that fight. That fight became a very tactical fight, and Velasquez was coming into this fight just just tearing everybody up. Right? Let's be honest. She was knocking people out or submitting them, or just. I mean, she is a dangerous athlete, and so I think Ilima wanted to be very careful. And I think that she's probably tested that water now, and she feels comfortable. And so maybe the next time the strategy will be much different. She kept moving away from her power, and I could see her working the technique. But again, it was 1-2. It was 1-2, 1-2. It wasn't let's get busy and let's get down. It was more let's stay a little bit careful, a little bit in a comfort zone, but she fought a very smart fight, and if you look at the judges' scorecard, it was pretty close, right?
Yep.
The takedowns happened way later in the fight. I want to say round 4, round 5, but maybe if she would have gotten busy earlier, who knows, right? Juliana's no joke, though, man. I'm telling you, this girl, and she's got those long arms and those long legs, and she's a black belt in judo. She has a great style of fighting, because she can knock you out with hands. She could knock you out with feet. She could ground and pound you. She could submit you. she's a dangerous athlete. So if Ilima wants to do it, sure, we consider it. But I'm not sure that it's something that will happen right away. I mean, that's something that I think we should build up and then promote it back, and maybe we take that back to Hawaii sometime before the end of the year. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. And from one, Brazilian champion female in your female division to the other, Cris Cyborg, what's the thoughts for her going into 2021? I know there's been boxing discussed, all that kind of stuff, but what's kind of your hopes to see her in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, since she fought last time against Arlene, I haven't really talked to her, and so I was going to give it through the holidays and then reach out to her, have a conversation, see when she wants to start fighting again and who she wants to fight. And but we just haven't had that conversation because I really thought she just wanted to take some time off and spend time with her family and kind of stay hunkered down with the COVID thing, and we'll pick it up in January. But we'll definitely get her fights in 21, and I'm sure that by January she'll be looking to get back in there and start scheduling a matchup. But that's something I could probably answer better in January.
Okay, cool. And when can we see Dillon Danis back in the Bellator cage? Your business partner. I know last time we talked, you talked about him. There was the Jake Paul or Logan Paul, Jake Paul stuff coming up. Since then, there's been some crazy viral videos and back and forth, drive-bys with toilet paper and all this kind of stuff. What do you make of all that? And is this potentially gonna happen before we see Dillon Danis back in Bellator?
I'll tell you, Dillon was injured for a while, so we kind of laid off him. But when he's ready to fight, we'll put him back in the cage right away. I mean, the kid only has, 2 or 3 MMA fights or 4 MMA fights. I don't remember how many fights he has, maybe a handful. But, he's still a guy that was on his way of growing, to become let's say, a complete mixed martial artist. So that's the business that we signed up for. Look, all that other stuff with Jake, I had a conversation with their management team a year ago, and they had expressed interest, and then they got busy, and then we got busy, and things in life happen. So it didn't resurface until this fight just recently happened with Tyson, and he fought on the undercard, and people have been asking me, people have been calling me, people from hey, why don't you let him come fight? Would you let him fight in a boxing match? And my response is this, hey, Dillon Danis is an MMA fighter. Why don't you come fight him in MMA? You want to test your skills as a fighter, as a martial artist? Why don't you come? Why does it have to always be in boxing, where it's something that's outside of his comfort zone? And so to me, it's like, look, if they want to do 1-on-1, yeah, let's get it on. If not, why don't you come fight in MMA first, and then we'll figure it out. But I'm not opposed to it, and if Dillon really wants to do it, we'll have a conversation with him. But I don't see any upside, to him doing a boxing fight when that's not really what he does, And I think Joe Rogan said in a street fight, Dillon Danis would wipe him out, and it's true. Dillon Danis in a street fight would take it to that kid, and that's the truth. So to me, it's like, look, MMA is different. It's not just boxing. It's a complete, self-defense system, and boxing is one part of it, but that's not the specialty. And listen, on the other side, I understand it. I'm a promoter. This is a big deal. There's a lot of social following out there for Jake and also for Logan, and I get it. The promotion would be amazing. It would be so much fun to watch this promotion happen. But at the end of the day, if I'm Dillon, what's the upside for him other than he might make a lot of money, but is it really in his best interest in the long run to take this fight just in boxing only? Which I know that the Paul brothers are great wrestlers. They come from a great history of real wrestling, high school All-Americans, I think from Ohio, which as you know, is a great wrestling state, and they're the real deal. They can easily make the transition to MMA too. So to me, that's more attractive to me than just boxing.
Well, curious to see what happens to that for sure. I know currently we have Jake and Ben Askren talking about boxing in March, so we'll see what happens there. But,
I already know who's gonna. Hey, I already know who's gonna win that one.
Yeah, tell us.
I don't even have to. Come on. Ben's a wrestler. Let's put it that way, right? So I think he gets knocked out, but in a boxing fight, right? But in an MMA fight, it's a different story. I know that the Paul brothers can do both, right? Jacob was a real wrestler, can box now. I mean, think about it. You have boxing, you have wrestling, right? Just learn the anti jiu-jitsu techniques that Frank Shamrock and Ken Shamrock used to teach back in the day, and you'll be fine. Don't worry, you'll be good.
That's funny. All right, two more, Scott. Then I promise I'll let you go. Ryan Bader, obviously, he lost the light heavyweight title, but he is still your heavyweight champion. What do you kind of look for him to do? I know, we talked about a potential light heavyweight tournament. Maybe you would bring him back down for that, but he is the heavyweight champion. I assume the priority is to have him defend that title next.
You know what? I tell you, we were definitely heading in that direction, and then I got a call recently from his management saying that he would like to consider fighting Nemkov again. And so, to me, we haven't flushed it out, but I think there is a desire for a rematch of that fight. And if it happens, I'm not sure, but we're definitely going to have a conversation with him about it, because we were all about him getting into the heavyweight division and defending his belt. But that could change here in the next couple of weeks. So I will keep you posted.
Interesting. So if he does want to do that, would you allow him to hang on to that title, or would you potentially move on with the heavyweight belt?
Yeah, I think that I think he might have to make a decision at that point. But we'll talk it through, because he's our champ, right? But we also want to let the champ, the belt continue on. If you really want to fight Nemkov, and we have to have a conversation at some point. Those conversations just haven't happened, but they will here real shortly. But I think that his management basically told us he's very excited about these new signings, and he would love to fight these guys. Like to fight Nemkov, get his belt back. He'd also like to fight the other guys that we just signed. Whether it's Yoel or Rumble, but he's ready to get it on. So Ryan Bader's afraid of nobody. Believe me, this guy is a killer too. He was just in a tough fight with Nemkov, and boy, when I think about that division now, man, it just makes me smile, because it's going to be a scary division for any 205er. Coming up to enter that gauntlet of those killers in there. So, I'm excited about that. That's something that we're really going to focus on next year, as far as the development of our 205-pound weight class division, and put some of the best fights that we can, or some of the greatest 205-pound fights, in the planet on these cards that we're going to do, especially early on. I think you can see a lot of those names in that 205-pound weight class fighting early on in 2021.
Yeah, and we might have just gotten a sliver of a Bader Rumble rematch the other night when they had that grappling bout at Submission Underground. So you never know.
I didn't see it. How did it go? Who won?
I believe Bader won on points in overtime. I believe. But yeah, I don't think there was a finish in there. So I think he took it on like 3 days' notice or something. So good for him.
There you go. Yeah.
But to close it out, we're talking about your heavyweight champion. Last thing, let's talk about, I know in your mind, the greatest heavyweight ever, the GOAT, Fedor Emelianenko. I know the pandemic has derailed a lot of your plans that you had for this farewell tour and everything. But any idea what kind of the exit point for Fedor could look like here, or what you're going to do with him for this final stage of your career now, or his career?
I mean, we're really close, and I really wanted Fedor to fight, his retirement fight, not in front of, just the officials, and have, the staff, and be in a closed environment in a bubble. I really want Fedor to finish his career fighting in front of 30,000 people in Moscow, to be honest. And Bellator enter its first fight in the Moscow or in Russia, and do a fight in Moscow for him. The prodigal son has returned, and Fedor has been the greatest fighter of all time. And he's now coming home to retire and put his gloves up and hang it up. And we were hoping by now we would have already had the one fight. We have 2 fights left with Fedor. Had one fight in Europe that we would have already done. Now he might have even fought sometime in July and August in Europe if we would have had a normal series there, and could have gone to some of the countries that we wanted to. And COVID is still a situation in Russia. So as the vaccine, I'm hoping that the vaccine will, start fixing the situation, and we can start bringing in crowds. But to me, I feel like we've waited so long for Fedor to fight, hoping that the pandemic would thin out. And now that it's getting close, and I can see light at the end of the tunnel for the pandemic to go away. And I really want to wait and to do these fights in a proper stadium, and especially the one that we do in Moscow. I want to do something very big for him because, it's, to me, it's like he's the king, and the king is returning from the battlefield, after 25 years of fighting, or 20 something years of fighting, and he deserves to have a king's welcome and a king's send off, from fighting, and and I think Moscow is a perfect place to do it, and I believe that it will be a big show, and I think we can have 30,000-40,000 people there come to that fight, because not only will he fight, but also all the guys that we have, like Nemkov, and all the Tokovs, and all the we have all those great fighters from Moscow that are fighting for Bellator. They will also fight on the card, and we'll do maybe a Russia versus the world match there, and you'll see some fighters from the United States, some fighters from Europe, and we'll just have a great event. It'll be the first time ever in Russia, and yeah, I want it to be big, and I want it to be the best.
I think that's very admirable to try to send him out the right way. So that's great, Scott. And I would think I've taken up enough of your time today, so I really appreciate it. These are always really fun, Scott. I know we kind of had a long conversation right at the beginning when you were kind of in the stages of trying to work your way back from the pandemic. It was great to see you guys be able to do that, pull off a lot of successful events, and here we are, the end of 2020, going into 2021. So very much looking forward to seeing what Bellator has to offer in the coming year, and I hope you have a happy and safe holiday.
Yeah, you too. Have a good holiday, and we'll see you next year.